Hey guys, how are you?
Hi, Bridget.
Good. Good. I'm glad you guys can join me today to help give a historic homes tour to our viewers on Facebook. So thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Bridget. I'm going to be giving you the house tour, but I would like to introduce you to some co-workers of mine.
I'm Liz. I'm going to help stream today, and I'm actually going to get inside to get ready, so I'll see you there. Thanks for being here.
And this is my friend Carolyn. She's our communications manager.
Hi everyone. As Bridget said, I'm Carolyn. I will be behind the scenes today kind of answering your questions. So as the tour happens and progresses, please leave any questions that you have for Bridget and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. Just a note, we're still trying to figure out this whole live stream process, so we're doing our best, and thank you in advance for your patience as we kind of hammer out these little technicalities. But I think it's going to be a really good tour, and we're excited to have you all.
Thank you. Okay, so actually before I take you guys inside, I thought I will give you a better scope of what you've been looking at as you've been waiting for us to go live stream. So this is a house that was built in 1810 by Elizabeth Ann Seton. They were living in a stone farmhouse, which hopefully we'll tour another time. They were living in the stone farmhouse for about 7 months, and finally the house was ready enough for the young community of 16 women to move in February of 1810. The house is still utilized today. We have our student tours, group tours, family tours come through on our lower level, which is the museum. Our second and third floor, which is one point in time where the sisters and students have slept, is now used for sisters who come on retreat for a period of time. So all the rooms that we're going to go into today are the rooms that Mother Seton has worked in, prayed in, and lived in, as well as numerous sisters and students that has passed through. So, again, if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them. But meanwhile, let's go ahead on inside. Okay, now we're inside, so welcome to the White House as we call it, but Mother Seton actually called this St. Joseph's house. It was a house in the fields, and she lived in this house for the last 11 years of her life. Before I begin taking you through all the rooms, I really wanted to point out these 3 paintings that were done by her nephew on the Bailey side. They're from memory and they're not to scale, but I thought it would give you a really nice imagery of how the development of Mother Seton's house community and the house had transpired over the last 200 years. So the first painting that you see really is to Mother Seton's time. You have the original framework of the White House. So it's a typical colonial. It was a log cabin. Later it was effaced with clapboard and then painted white. In the next painting, this is probably about the mid-1820s after Mother Seton's time. As you can see, we still have the White House here, and lean-tos were actually added on to the outside of the house. The school kept growing, the enrollment kept increasing, that Mother Seton knew that she needed more building even during her time to help accommodate all the students, both day students and boarding students. So this red building here was the Academy building. Fortunately, the Academy building no longer exists today. We think it kind of got torn down due to the further development of Mother Seton School that actually became a college institution, and it was a women's college. So as you can see, this had Gothic buildings in this painting, and this became St. Joseph College that ran up until 1973. But to focus a little bit more about early American school, Mother Seton held it inside this house, so we have interpreted what her school classroom could have looked like during her time. Students would come in. There was a total of 3 classes. They were made up of girls, both poor and boarders. The poor girls were actually sponsored by the Sisters of Charity. Boarders were expected to pay additional fee, but they got additional education that came along with it. For example, art and a different language like French or music. So sort of something what we call extracurricular activity, where the poor girls that were sponsored by the Sister of Charity were just expected to learn arithmetic and English and grammar. So very simple, fundamental education.
Bridget, before we continue, we just to say for those tuning in now and who might have missed the beginning of our program, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment, and we're happy to answer them. We'll hope to get to as many as we can, but just leave your questions in the comments, and thanks again for joining us.
So as you can see, it can be very similar to classes today, but I thought I'd point out a couple of things. So to my right would be the pianoforte that is very prominent when you first come in. So this is not Mother Seton's piano. This actually dates probably more about 1840s. But we know that Mother Seton had a piano here. She was very skilled at the piano and probably offered keyboarding lessons. We know that they did geography. Mother Seton actually had a globe in this room that would have been used to keep track of her son, William, travels. So she would pin it, and I think it will help to the geography lesson for the students. Trying to think. No questions yet?
No questions. A personal question. Do you have any fun facts about Mother Seton?
Fun facts about Mother Seton. Oh, gosh. Well, Mother Seton was, again, she was 4'10". She had 5 children, 2 sons and 3 daughters. Her daughters were here. They were going to school here. They were in her care. And her son, William and Richard, were actually students at the Mount. So every week, she made an attempt to go and visit them up at the Mount. The Mount is only 2.5 miles from here, and it was a great relationship between the 2 schools, where the girls were taught here and the boys were taught at the Mount. So, Mother Seton did teach some classes, but I believe that as she progressed into the later years, she was much more of an observant. There is one story, an account that his sister wrote down, where mothers came into the classroom, took her seat in a rocker, and she just sat there rocking back and forth, and you can hear the crick of the rocker. And the children were reciting something, and then all of a sudden they heard her voice saying, "Children, please, louder and slower." I guess she had an opinion about how they were reciting the prayer, so she made sure to step in when she needed to correct them. So, so I think Mother Seton was definitely loved by the students here, even though she wasn't too much of a teacher. She depended on a lot of the other sisters to carry on the curriculum, including her daughter, Catherine Seton.
So we got a couple of questions coming in.
Yeah.
The first one is from Christine, who is asking, what do you mean by the Mount? I think she's referring to when you were talking about Mother Seton's boys attending the Mount.
Mount St. Mary's University? Okay, yeah.
So it's the university just up the street?
Yeah, it's right up the street. So Mount St. Mary's College, it was a seminary at first that was established in like 1807. And then it became a college, and I'm trying to think, just a couple of years ago, it actually became a university. So it hasn't been a university for long, but it used to be an all-boys school up until, I think, about 1960 when it went co-ed. So, yeah.
Okay, we have another question from Cozy. She wants to ask, how many students did she teach in a class?
It's really hard to say exactly how many students were actually in a class at any given time. We do know that there were more boarders than there were day students. And we do know that just shortly after Mother Seton died, the enrollment of boarders was up to 80, and there were 60 sisters in the community. So that's about, that many people in this particular house in itself. So.
Looks like we have another question. The questions are coming in, which is great. Trudy would like to know a little bit more about St. Joseph's College.
St. Joseph College became a 4-year institution. I think it was probably about 1904. Please forgive my dates. There's a lot of dates to remember. I think it's 1904 that it finally officially became accredited. But the first graduating class, a 4-year graduating class, didn't graduate until 1912. I do know that by 1850, St. Joseph had offered nursing programs. As you know, the sisters would very much had a presence during the Civil War in the practice of nursing on the battlefields. And that is accredited to the sisters from here in Emmitsburg. And the college did close down in 1973 because the sisters really wanted to refocus the ministry and serving the poor and the marginalized. So I'm sure it was a tough decision. Do they continue education, which is Mother Seton's legacy, or do they focus their careerism of charity elsewhere? But Mother Seton School legacy still does exist. We actually have Mother Seton School here in Emmitsburg, not a direct link to Elizabeth Ann Seton School, but it carries the legacy here.
We have a question from Dean, who is 9 years old. Hi, Dean.
Hi, Dean. How are you?
He wants to know, how old were the students?
How old were what?
Were the students who attended her school?
Oh, gosh. I think the students were probably the same age that students go to school today. So probably as young as 5 or 6, and then as old at least as 16 or 17. And again, they didn't really necessarily follow grade levels. They actually would group together based on their skill set, because education in early America is very different than it was today. Poor girls, those of lower class, I hate to say poor, but those of the lower class, they really learned from their parents, from the generation, and they were more expected to work in a household, especially the girls. They had to learn the domestic chores, help their mothers, and so forth. The boys of family would be the one that had a higher opportunity to be sent away to school. Mother Seton really changed all that here in Emmitsburg.
For those of you who are just joining us, thanks again. Please leave any questions that you have in the comments below. And I think a lot of you are tuning in. We had a little bit of difficulty at the beginning. So thank you for your patience with us. Another question, maybe the last one before we move into the next room, is from Erica, who is asking, can you recommend a good biography of Mother Seton?
Oh, yes, I can. I am biased in the most recent biography written by Catherine O'Donnell. It was very well written, very well researched, and it's Elizabeth Seton, the American Saint. And if you go to our website, especially the Shrine gift shop, you can order the book there. I highly recommend it. But then, of course, you have the collective writings of Elizabeth Ann Seton. So to read her actual words, and it's not interpreted by someone else's researches and somebody else's word, you have to kind of go to the collective writings. And as intense as they are, there's 3 volumes. You can get them in PDF by Googling, collective writing of Elizabeth Ann Seton. Okay. So let's go on with the rest of the tour, because one of the things that all the girls really had to learn while they were here was the hand skill of working a needle and thread. And if we go into the next room, I can show you a very unique artifact that we have on site. So this room that you are seeing is called the work basket room. Also can be known as a community room. This is where the sisters would have gathered, as well as students, for additional lessons, for community to work together, especially working on embroidery pieces. This is the hand working skill that I was talking about, fine motor skills of using the needles and thread to create pieces, whether it's an embroidery piece on a piece of linen, table runner, or creating samplers. The students, especially girls of the 19th century, it was kind of expected that they would learn how to thread and create samplers that will contain letters and numbers and so forth. So up on this wall here is Catherine Seton's sampler. She was 7 years old when she made this sampler. And this is more of a pictorial sampler. So this would be something a little bit more advanced coming later in life. So like I said, most girls would have made at least one sampler. For those that had more opportunities for them, they would have made a pictorial sampler which contained more images and stuff. But I think it's a great piece. I'm sorry, I think my shadow is hiding it. So there's another piece on the wall here that must have been done by a sister. That is more of a pictorial sampler. It usually holds a verse from scripture. The sisters, again, they would gather around the table. There's usually always one at the head of the table that would read something from the scripture or some sort of reflection. The sisters did get together daily to recite the chaplet. As you can see on the wall, there is a strand of beads, a rosary. And if a sister was late in the meeting up for prayers to begin their day reciting the chaplet, they were still expected to take the beads off the wall and recite it before they began their work. A lot of the other furniture pieces that you're seeing, they're just period pieces. Okay. Are there any questions?
We need some more questions.
Okay.
So whoever has a question, please feel free to leave a comment, and we'll do our best to get to it.
Okay. Well, we have some more artifacts. So this isn't the only room where we have some period pieces and artifacts. In fact, if we go down the hall here, I can show you a little bit. I'm going to take a quick stop here in the stairwell area because I want to let you know we're in the center of the house, and modern technology definitely came to the house where the walls have gone up, walls have gone down, but we do believe that this used to be one big open space of the work basket room / community room. But the stairwell led upstairs. This is the original stairwell. The stairs itself has been replaced, but I thought what was really unique is the actual railing of the stairs is still the original railing from 1810.
So we do have a question not related to the stairwell, but
Yeah.
Stan would like to know a little bit more about Mother Seton's connection to, I guess, the nursing charism of the Daughters of Charity. He's asking specifically about how in our gift shop we do have a lot of books about how the nuns served during the Battle of Gettysburg, and if there's some kind of connection between Mother Seton and that era.
Yes. So there's a lot in that question. So the charism of charity is what I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier in our tour at the start. That really stems from the works of St. Vincent de Paul and St. Louise de Marillac back in 1633 when they founded the Daughters of Charity in Paris, France. When Mother Seton established her order, the Sisters of Charity of St. Joseph, she was given the works of Louise, and she translated it from French into English, and within those works was the rules that the daughters followed. So by 1812, so this is 2.5 years when she established her ministry, that they adapted those rules and it kind of Americanized them. And they continue the work. So if you ever come to visit, especially our basilica, we have stained glass windows that really showcases the charism of charity, serving the poor, the sick, the imprisoned, and so on. As far as the work continuing on with the books in the gift shop that goes on into the Civil War, yeah, that charism of charity really definitely transpired over into the battlefield during the Civil War when our nation was torn. And we do have a special exhibit on that as well called the Civil War Sisters, as well as the outdoor tour that we offered in the summer that talks about the 1863 accounts here in Emmitsburg, because we had a Union encampment, how those sisters served those soldiers and what happened after the Battle of Gettysburg that is only less than 10 miles from here. Again, those are major times in history that showcases the charism of charity, but those sisters are still working around it today. We even have another exhibit that talks about the sisters around the world today, where they are, how do they serve, in what capacity. So, great question. I hope I answered that question. That was a really good one, though.
Yeah, that's great. We have a quick question here from Lisa. Are there any replica embroidery patterns for sale?
Is there any replicas
of the embroidery patterns?
Actually, there is. Well, I believe there is. At one point in time, there was in the gift shop Catherine Seton sampler, and you can actually recreate that if you wanted to.
Oh, that's cool.
Thank you, Lisa, for answering that question. In fact, if we could, I would love to show you some more objects here, because our next room really is special to this house. Welcome to the sitting room, also known as Mother Seton's bedroom. Mother Seton really bore the inconveniences with grace. She had a whole house here, and she gave herself a small smidgen of the space that was very much in direct of everyday life. We believe that her bedroom was actually set up here in the corner of this room. She had calico curtains that hang from the ceiling to the floor. Now, this isn't her bed per se, so she did not die in this bed, but we do have some objects in here that did belong to her. For example, this writing laptop desk here, we believe that she purchased this and gave this writing laptop desk to a student. Her name was Juliana White. When Juliana White grew up, she in turn gave it to her niece. And her niece was the one that actually married her grandson, Henry Seton. So this is, he became Captain Henry Seton. Then in turn, she gave it to her son, which would have been Mother Seton's great-grandson, Dr. William Seton. So it's kind of funny how things can come back into play. But a writing laptop desk is you would just put it on your lap and you would open it up, and then there would be an internal compartment that would actually hold the paper and anything else like ink, the feather pens, and then it would give them the space to write it. But this isn't the only thing that Mother Seton would have used. But we do know Mother Seton actually had her own writing laptop desk because it's in the archives of the Sisters of Charity up in New York. But she did have her own desk here as well. This is a replica. It's not her actual desk. It's in archives under restoration. But we know that she has spent many hours sitting at a desk, translating the works of Louise, writing letters to her friends and family. And she probably found solace sitting in this particular area because we know that she had written to her friend Julia Scott stating that she's looking out towards the cemetery where her daughters are buried. So her daughter Rebecca Seton and Anna Maria Seton did die in this room, as well as Mother Seton.
So Bridgett, for those just tuning in now, Pamela is asking for clarification, and I think a lot of people will benefit from hearing this, just if this was Mother Seton's home, or just the school, or a convent, or a combination of all three.
Yes, it is a combination of it being Mother Seton's home and the school. It's not necessarily a convent. Convent is more for those that takes lifelong vows in the sisterhood of women religious, and they cloister themselves away from the public. Mother Seton was very much like a lay woman among the people, among the community, and that's how a lot of the Sisters of Charity and even Daughters of Charity still serve in that capacity. So this again is a very unique site, but yes, it is her home, but it did serve as a school. If you don't mind, I'd like to point out a couple more pieces as you guys are looking around. I noticed that the camera went up to the Calvary wood piece above the mantle. This belonged to Mother Seton. It is the original piece. It has been restored, but this was a gift from the Fulicchi brothers. The Fulicchi were Roman Catholic Italians. They were business associates of her husband, William McGee Seton, and they embraced Elizabeth Ann Seton as one of their own, especially after her husband died in 1803. So when she witnessed their practicing faith, it really sparked something internally for her that it led to her conversion. So on her trip back from Italy to New York, the Fulicchi accompanied her on that ship and gifted this piece to her. So.
We do have a couple more questions here, and we'll try and get to all of them, but keep them coming because they're great. Amelia, who is age 11, is asking, why are there fireplaces in every room?
There are fireplaces in these rooms because they needed it. It was a source of heat during Mother Seton's time. Unfortunately, they didn't have the luxury that we have today, where we have a system that provides us heat and provide us cooling. The large windows that you see out through the house was very necessary because they would need the large windows to be open in order to catch the cross breeze. The fireplaces was, again, a source of heat. They used candles to illuminate the room for light. And so today, the fireplaces are no longer functional fireplaces. They are closed off, but on really windy days, and if we were quiet enough, I don't think the wind is that windy today, but if we were quiet enough, you can actually hear the wind rolling in the chimney. So it kind of gives it a nice little old house feeling.
So
That's
we do
a
have
great question.
a couple questions regarding Mother Seton's children. Carol is asking if she had any descendants, and I'm so sorry I lost her name, but someone else asked, what did Mother Seton's daughters die of?
Both of her daughters died from some form of TB. Anna Maria died at the age of 18. She is buried out in the original cemetery. And her youngest daughter, Rebecca, died at the age of 14. Her TB ended up settling into her bone, and as far as we know, it must have been a very painful form of agony for her in her deathbed. But if you read her writing, especially Elizabeth Ann Seton's accounts of Rebecca's death, it's very endearing and enlightening because Rebecca held such restraint and good faith and always had a smile on her face, apparently, no matter how much pain she is in. And she comforted her mother more than she was worried about herself. So it was quite powerful. Another piece that segueing into like spirituality and how impactful it can be on somebody is this is the Christ the Redeemer. Mother Seton owned this. This is a replica. The original is an archive. But this was a gift from her husband, William McGee Seton. If you learn a little bit more about William McGee Seton, he was a businessman. He was not necessarily a religious, spiritual person. And he was so thoughtful to Mother Seton's spirituality and where she was at that he gifted this to her as a wedding gift. So it's just a nice testimony of how much she respected her faith.
Barbara has a quick question that many are probably wondering. Do we have any retreats here? Or can people have a retreat here in the White House?
Christening?
A retreat.
A retreat? Sorry. The sisters are able to have retreats here. Unfortunately, we do not open up retreats to the public. But we do have day retreats back in our main building at the Basilica. So if you look at our website, we will hopefully, when we open back up again and have the public more and no more social distancing, we can offer more retreats for one day. So, before we leave this room, Mother Seton got very ill the summer of 1820. She got caught in a rainstorm while looking at the foundation of what would be Mother Seton's another school for the day students to be in, separating from the borders, because again, her school enrollment was increasing every year. So she was thinking ahead. She was definitely thinking about the development. But anyway, she got caught in a rainstorm, and from there, her health really deteriorated. By November of 1820, she really was expecting her upcoming immediate death. And something that I would say she's probably been searching for all her life, but she had enough strength, we believe, to actually write this last will and testament. You'll see two framed writing pieces here. The one on the far left is a copy of Mother Seton's handwriting of her last will and testament. She died finally on January 4th, 1821. Her spiritual advisor, Bridgett, really gave a beautiful account of the last several days of her life. I highly recommend reading them, and you can find them in the collective writings. Her daughter, Catherine Seton, was here by her bedside. The frame writing piece that's on the far left is the print text to better understand the Old English handwriting style.
We got a quick question from Mary Kate, who is 7. She's asking if Elizabeth Ann Seton was Catholic.
Yes.
Oh, was her husband Catholic?
No, her husband was not Catholic. However, I believe that if her husband had lived long enough, it could have been very possible that they both would have gone through the conversion to Catholicism together along with the family. In the next room over of Mother Seton's room is the choir, which we all know today as a chapel. Mother Seton was very intentional about the setup of this house, and she wanted not only to include a school, but she wanted to include a place where the sisters and the students could come together to celebrate Mass and hold prayer service. So this area would be the choir. They would have folding, we see the folding doors, they would have shut the folding doors so they can utilize this space as another classroom when they needed to. The sanctuary, you have the altar. Mother Seton did design that altar and have it built for her. And if you notice on the base of the altar, there is a very symbolic imagery, and it's that of the cradle, representing the manger that Jesus was born in. Based on the descriptions in her writing, we believe that she actually knelt towards the right side of the sanctuary, but not at this railing. This railing actually was more for the Stranger's Chapel, which is off to the right of the sanctuary, back behind Mother Seton's bedroom. By 1812, she had extended the lean-to to accommodate a Stranger's Chapel, meaning that people from outside the community, like from town or from the mountain, could come and join the sisters and the students for Mass without actually being in the same physical space as them. The continuation of the woodwork that you're seeing of the mantles and the chair railing, all are original to the house. The paintings above the mantles belong to Mother Seton. We have Behold the Man and the Woman of Sorrows. If you remember, we just did a recent video about Behold the Man, and you can find that on our website, as well as up-close images of the 14 black enamel Stations of the Cross that is hanging up inside this house. We know in a letter written by Mother Seton to her friend in 1811, in request of a Station of the Cross similar to the description that we're seeing in here. However, we just don't know exactly when they arrived. So we say they're original to the White House because we cannot confirm if they are truly, indeed, have belonged to Mother Seton. Now, these Stations of the Cross are called meerschaum. So if you're not able to get through the video, I can give you a little bit of information on that. It's called meerschaum. It is a clay-like material that is called magnesium silicate, and it can actually be found floating on the Black Sea, apparently. So it's very popular among Europe. It's smooth, easy, translucent to carve into. So the artwork, again, is very exquisite. So I highly recommend visiting our website, our Facebook page, and looking for that Station of the Cross video.
We have a couple more questions here.
Great, wonderful.
Tess, who is age 9, is wondering if the walls, the paint, the floors are the same as when Mother Seton taught and lived here.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they're not, most likely. We do believe that while the design in the woodwork is original, dating up to 1810, the actual paint and the wood flooring has been replaced over time. In fact, it's a little hard to explain, but I'll do the best I can. This is not the original location that the house stood in. It was actually just a little bit, probably about 50 feet, a little bit more east than where we are now. They actually moved the house by 1850 because they wanted the room for the St. Joseph College Gothic building to have a little bit more of a cohesive campus layout. Then the house moved again in 1917 because the gentleman that moved it for $500 the first time didn't actually put it on a basement. So again, this was a log house, and exposed to the element, it actually started to deteriorate. So they restored the house in 1917, and I believe everything from that time has not been updated since. So this is the flooring from the early 20th century. But great question.
We got a question from Robert, which you might have just answered, so I apologize. When was the White House built?
The White House, actually, they started breaking ground in 1809, and it was completed really officially probably by March of 1810. In fact, March 19th was a very special day for the sisters and Mother Seton because that was the very first time they actually celebrated Mass in this house. They celebrated Mass for the first time on St. Joseph's feast day. So that tells me that even though they moved in February of 1810, they probably still went back to the stone farmhouse, or they traveled up to the mount and was in town to St. Joseph, where they would have mass there instead of actually having mass here.
A couple more questions, and again, we'll try and get to all of them, and we apologize if we can't. If we can't answer them now, we'll try and go back after the broadcast has ended and answer them in the comments. Let's see. Marlene is asking, were the sisters cloistered, or did they work in the community?
The sisters definitely worked in the community, but they did live together. It's not necessarily a cloister. Cloisters are usually more reserved for women religious who take lifelong vows, and they, I don't want to say shield themselves from the world, but their work and their charism is a little differently than the Daughters of Charity that Mother Seton actually followed, where they took annual vows. They were expected to work among the poor, among the sick, among the imprisoned. They wanted to blend in as much as possible as the people and serving them.
And we got a question here from Laureen, who is asking, does Mother Seton have any living descendants? And if so, have they carried on the Catholic faith?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there is no direct bloodline to Elizabeth Ann Seton today. We believe the last living descendant died in 1957. Again, please don't quote me on that year, but whatever reason, William's children did not continue to have children. So yeah, unfortunately, there are definitely, what do you call it, like removed, though it's not a direct bloodline, but there are people that come today that said they family somewhere along the generational line. So we believe that, but not a direct bloodline. That's a great question, though. Okay. All right, well, we're going to head back out towards the main foyer area.
And as we do that, if anyone has final questions, we have a little bit of a lag time here, so go ahead and submit any final questions you have as Bridgett wraps up the tour.
I really do appreciate everyone being here today and joining us on our very first time of ever doing a live stream tour. So again, as Carolyn had mentioned earlier, thank you in advance for the patience that you have shown as we go through some technical and definitely going through a first time experience. I hope that everybody enjoyed their time with us. We hope that we can do this again. And again, if you guys have questions, please continue asking them, and even after the live streaming, if we see more questions pop up, we'll try to answer them as we can.
Okay, so a couple quick last questions. A couple of them are quick answers. Patricia asks, when did she become a saint?
When did she become a saint?
Mm-hmm.
She actually became a saint on September 14th, 1975. And in fact, people's eyes that were here on the day she died, they thought that Mother Seton should have been a saint on January 4th, 1821. It was definitely a long road towards her sainthood, but it was definitely something that one really believed in. Her spiritual advisor, Bridgett, he was the one that actually said, please collect and save as much as you can of Elizabeth Ann Seton, and that's exactly what the sisters, even Catherine Seton and family, have done. That's how we have so much of her writing, because her writing actually was a huge contribution that led to her sainthood.
Jackie asks, are prints available of the stations? Can they purchase like a copy of the stations anywhere?
Unfortunately, they're very unique in itself, so no, there's no replicas available.
Pamela has a great question. Was there a kitchen? A kitchen.
Oh, yes, a kitchen, yes. I always forget about that. Oh, gosh. Usually if I have my student tours, they always remind me, but where's the kitchen and where's the restroom? So the kitchen actually was located in the basement area. Mother Seton, again, was intentional. So the kitchen, the washroom, and the dining was located in the basement. As the community grew, there was a refectory, a building, like a cafeteria that was built for the sisters to have their meals outside the house. So, and then as far as restrooms go, I don't know when running water came into the house, but there was definitely outhouses and pot chambers during Mother Seton time. Okay, well, I think that was pretty much all the questions that we have so far today. Again, you're welcome to continue posting questions and we can respond to you in comments. But I'm going to lay you outside the front door again, and thank you so much for coming, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Come back again. Bye.